Second. All right, Shawn, welcome once again. Thank you for joining us today. I am Rabbi Yosef Edery, and this is my good friend and fellow Sanhedrin advisor, Shawn Lei. I am now in the Golan Heights in Israel, and Shawn is in the United States of America. We're here today to talk about a plethora of important topics: the Sanhedrin, which is the Jewish halachic uh, court system of the Jewish people as a preparatory step in its establishment for the redemption, um, and the seven laws of Noah. We're going to talk about how the seven laws of Noah for all mankind correlate in some ways to the chakra, and there are hints that um connect the Chinese tradition with the seven laws of Noah. In other words, the Torah cross-referenced with Chinese traditions um, seem to back each other up. And of course, last but not least, we'll talk about the war in the Holy Land, Be'ezrat Hashem. So, firstly, Shawn, how you doing? How's your week? What's going on?
I'm doing well. I have a little bit head cold. A lot of stuff's going around, but it's so far it's good. Had a lot of time to reflect. Um, yeah, everything's pretty good. How about you? How's everything over there right now?
Baruch Hashem. So we're doing okay. There's a conference of the Sanhedrin Initiative by Rabbi Tzvi Idan, head judge of the Sanhedrin Justice and Advisory Board, coming up soon. I'm not sure if our team is going to be able to join, but we're trying to see. We have a lot on our plate here at the Nation of Ephraim and Sanhedrin Initiative Golan Embassy. We kind of spoke about it. Not everything is for the public domain, but we're kind of busy here. We might be able to have our team join the conference as well. We're in touch with Rabbi Chayak, which is our local Sanhedrin judge here in Katzrin in Golan, and we'll see what we can do. In any case, we're very busy. We're very happy to have this opportunity, thanks to actually your donations, amongst others, to visit the soldiers here in the Golan and make some popcorn and make some music and keep their spirits high in these times of tribulation, you know? So we're very happy about that we have that exclusive opportunity here in the Holy Land. Of course, anyone else who's interested in supporting us, it shouldn't all fall on you. It's a lot of responsibility. So you shouldn't be the only one in the world to help the situation. So, of course, mnglobal.org for those who want to support the soldiers and the work that we're doing. Anyway, so Shawn, could you let's start with asking you, what do you think? Because you've been one of the first Sanhedrin advisors officially as part of the Sanhedrin initiative, and when we started out, and it took us many years to even, break down the Jewish law together and the ideas and how to set up the right way to go. So, from your perspective, as a Sanhedrin advisor from one of the first ones, what do you think about the Sanhedrin initiative and how it's rolling out? And of course, you've been monitoring what we're doing. What do you think about it?
Well, so I'm gonna give a little context because I think it's gonna help me with my answer. I was originally from China, southern China. Then I came to the United States. Seeing how the justice culture in the system works, is or meant to work in both these countries. We have a saying, and I'm probably not the only person who's saying this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that the Chinese justice system traditionally likes to. Well, when I say traditionally, I meant like the last maybe 100 years or so. Um, have this mentality of almost. It's probably not always like that, but this mentality of we would rather kill 1,000 innocent people just so that we won't let the one guilty person, get away. Now, contrast that with the United States. We have a saying, innocent until proven guilty and things like that, which is a very common phrase in the Western world, not just the United States. It might have came from maybe the English common laws or something. I'm not sure, but um, in the United States, we have something that's very different. Is we would rather let go of 1,000 guilty people just so that we don't accidentally kill or kill or punish one innocent person. So, and of course, like wartime, peacetime, that's also very different. Two countries have very different ways of approaching things for good and bad. It's like approaching things from different directions. Um, the cultures overall, that's just a small example of the different ways, the polarized ways of the Asian way and the Western way. And I see that overall, the culture of Israel tend to be a happy medium, as happy as you can get, in our world today, between the Western and the Eastern culture. Things that Westerners might find very extreme, the Israelis talk about it, the Jewish people talk about it. Things that Chinese people might find very extreme, you know, and Westerners like, oh, what do you mean? Like we don't have anything extreme, but you don't realize it. You don't realize the extreme things you're doing until you're contrasting it with a perspective from a different culture. Again, the Chinese stuff, the Jews also talk about it. So I see the Jewish people. You can approach this as a religious way or secular way. Secularly, Jews have been exiled all over the world, all over the countries, almost or probably all over the countries. Maybe except for Antarctica, but even that's questionable. And you're taking all of them, returning in and trying to packing them into this little country called Israel. It's amazing that people are not, the Jews themselves are not killing each other. The fact that they came from so many different cultures. That itself is a very big, maybe not miracle, but a big feat. Um,
Very
so
interesting.
as
Yeah.
someone, yeah, so as someone who came from the two extremes of cultures in the world, I find Israel in the Jewish culture as a beacon of hope in adjudicating the differences of the world. So when I heard about the Sanhedrin, I learned about the Sanhedrin. I thought it was had a great potential to fill the gap, the cultural gap, the gap of like just the way people do justice around the world, and just really bringing the world together, connecting the world together. And then eventually, hopefully, we get world peace and all that, afterwards. But um, so so that's what I want. That's what I want to say about the Sanhedrin and my impression about it, and why I think it's such a great potential, not just for the Jewish people, but also set an example for the rest of the world.
100%, Sean. And even for me as a Chabad Chassid, coming from the Brooklyn, and we've been together at 770, and so on. But for us Chabadniks, a lot of times because our main focus is on Mashiach, a lot of people see the Sanhedrin as a small detail that needs to exist um, on the way to the ultimate and complete redemption, right? But as the years go on and we've been involved in the Sanhedrin establishment, we're starting to realize that the Sanhedrin has a lot of responsibility and it needs to function just like any other system needs to function. And of course, we know that if there's 10 Jews together, they can pull out a Torah scroll and read it on Shabbat or during the week, and you can say Kaddish, certain prayers you can only do when you have 10 Jews in a room. But when you have 70 Shivim Zkenim, 70 scholars, Torah scholars, on the caliber of the Sanhedrin, you can crown a king, you can receive the Torah like on Mount Sinai, what Moses did. You can serve Hashem, whether it's in the temple or to build a Mishkan. The potentials are out of this world and actually on the path to the ultimate and complete redemption. However, the Sanhedrin itself, when you're establishing it, comes very clear that it's all about justice. It's all about creating justice according to the Torah And for me, my main challenge when I'm talking to fellow Chabadniks is to tell them, like I spoke to very incredible Talmidei Chachamim, um, Jewish Torah scholars, and for me, it's very important to tell them that, of course, we can get this Sanhedrin together and we can try to make a psak din, which is a Jewish verdict. Let's say for a Chabadnik, the most important verdict would be that we have to make a verdict that Hashem has to make, that the Rebbe is revealed and the resurrection of the dead starts right away so that the Rebbe can come back and that we can crown him as king. But the real question is, legally, according to what the Rambam tells us and according to what the Torah says, is it the place of the Sanhedrin to make a verdict, to command God to create a miracle or to start the process of the Geula? And it might not be the Sanhedrin's place because, on the contrary, the Sanhedrin is the justice, and Din, according to what we learn in the Talmud, is all about just looking at the facts in front of us and working from there. And of course, when you're standing in front of a judge, then you can't take miracles into account. In other words, um, if you owe someone money, you can't just say, "Oh, God will make a miracle and pay them." That doesn't count in a Jewish court of law. You can't put miracles or even prophecies into the Torah law. The law has to be clean and just. The point of the justice is to be just. And like we spoke about many times, there's three things that the world stands on: Torah, which is the justice, Torah justice; Din Torah; Avodah, which is the service of the temple, or in our day, it's prayer; and Gemilut Chasadim is acts of charity, acts of goodness and kindness, which also bring peace. So justice, truth, and peace, and each one has its own place, and we need to find how to manifest each one individually, um, and and work off of that. Okay, so Shawn, let's talk about. So you have any other statements you want to say about the Sanhedrin? I just wanted to know before we move on to the next topic.
Uh, that's very. I think that's very interesting. I wish we had more time to expound upon that. I have comments to make on that to mostly just affirm what you're saying, but comparing it to the Chinese philosophy, which is some of it's pretty much on par with what you just said. But also, obviously there's I think anybody that's really truly understands what you're talking about would have naturally a lot of questions to ask about that as well. That's very interesting. But we can talk about that.
Shawn, go ahead. We have time. Take your time. The problem with me is that I don't have my blind spot is if you say that if you can see a question that other people might have that we should address, then definitely we should address it because that's the point of our video, our show, is to be able to give the right answers to the people, not just what we have in mind. So if you see another angle, then definitely I want to hear about it. It's important, I guess.
Well, I mean, it's not a big one. It's just that you mentioned that it sounds like part of what you're saying is that you want to keep the Torah wants to the Jewish perspective wants to keep din unique and pure, so that it's not interfering with it's not like trying to factor in too much like the miracle and have the potential to basically create BS. There's no room for BS in the justice system. It has to be, you know, uh, straight facts. Um, anybody that's been a police officer or emergency worker or whatever, dealing with people when you write reports, all you want to do is just write down the facts. It doesn't mean all you are is the facts. Doesn't mean the facts is all that matters. But specifically for that purpose, you have to keep it separate just so that they don't taint, just so it can be effective. So it's very interesting because I see a lot of commonalities between the Talmud and Jewish laws and English common laws, um, which is what a lot of our legal system, our laws are, in the United States is based off of. The idea of like setting precedents and then, later on reviewing the case and see what the earlier people said about it and stuff like that. That is, something that, both the English common law courts and the Jewish courts have. So I wonder if like maybe one influenced another. It's kind of interesting, you'll probably have people in the United States that are possibly in the legal profession that are watching this video, and they can probably make a lot of comments on it because obviously there's a studying Torah, studying all the Jewish laws and everything. It naturally has a lot of correspondences with the secular legal system. If you're a lawyer.
Shawn, if I would want to throw a joke in, I would say that uh, most of the court systems in the world are trying to be the Torah, but they're not. In other words, almost every court system that's functioning on any capacity, on whatever level of corruption or dysfunctionality, is trying to take from the Torah. And it's like the made in China version of the Torah, kind of, like just as a thing. But the point is that I think that the in the Jewish tradition, at least, we have a thing that we say that Hashem, there's a mashal. A mashal is an allegory, an example. So the example is that Hashem wanted that there was a king, and he had one of his younger children, and this young child was the king's favorite. So the king, before he died, he inherited the most important thing that he loved, which is his garden. He had a certain, in his whole palace, he had a certain garden area with, I guess, some houses or a certain part of his castle or whatever it was. And he decided that because that's his favorite spot, he's going to inherit that favorite spot to his favorite child. So too, God inherited his favorite thing in this world, which is justice, tzedek, to his favorite child, Yisrael, the Jewish people. So in that way, I think that it's not just talk, and of course, if we expound on this Torah lesson over there and that I'm referring to, we will see that it's not just talking about random justice. Of course, justice is a very intricate thing, and how would Hashem want to put justice in this world? There has to be a balance of what we have in Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, the three fathers of Judaism, of the children of Israel. Abraham is chesed, which is kindness. Yitzchak is gevurah, which is strength. And Yaakov is tiferet, which is mercy and grace. So there's a place of grace, there's a place of kindness, and there's a place of justice. And it all comes together. Of course, in the ultimate and complete redemption, it actually says that we're going to see the advantage or the ma'ala, the the importance of Yitzchak, which is justice. So specifically, the third temple is when the advantage of justice is revealed to the world. Um, so actually, Shawn, I just want to, and before we move on to the seven laws specifically, just want to share with you. Of course, I have the vending machines that I work on the regular. So there was a lady that came and she said, "Hey, so sometimes what happens with the machine is that a bunch of chips get stacked up. They don't fall out, but they get all stacked up in the corner, right? So my machines are very complicated. They have laser on the bottom, so if someone put money in and the item didn't fall, it won't take the person's money. Okay? So this lady calls me up and she says, "Hey, this I want some chips. The machine's not is packed up with the chips and it's not fair and this and this and that." So I come there and I talk to her and I try to tell her like what's the problem. So she says, "I just want some chips." I said, "Okay, so it costs 7 shekel, whatever." And she says to me, yeah, but where's the money? I already put money in the machine. So I said, that's not possible because my machine doesn't take money unless the product drops, you know? Um, and I went and she said, no, that's not true. I put money in. So I gave her money again. She put it in exactly as the story was told. And then again, we reenacted the entire scene, and the machine didn't take the money. So I said to her, look, ma'am, the machine works perfectly. You see that if the item didn't fall, then the money doesn't fall out. So, ma'am, I'm sorry, but anyone could come here and tell me whatever they want. You need to prove me that it's my fault. In Judaism, if you're trying to extract funds or anything from someone else, you are responsible to prove your case. Okay? So in other words, the other person doesn't need to prove his innocence. You need to prove that he's guilty. So I told her, look, you can't prove me. If you can prove me that my machine took your money, I'm ready to refund you or give you the chips for free. But as far as we just reenacted the machine, how it works to the letter, and you saw that if no item falls and it goes on empty, or if the chips stack up, which is the same concept. So we took out the chips and the thing rolled on empty. And if nothing came out, then the machine still says credit 7 shekel. So I can't help you. And she started to like shake, and she said, "Oh, I don't want. This is crazy." And she just walked away from me. So now she's not religious, this lady. So I don't know how much telling the truth or honesty means in her culture. I guess it's possible that because she's not religious, if you can get and she's a woman. I mean, okay, but let's not get too crazy. But the point is that it didn't seem like it was out of the question in her culture or whatever you want to call it to get away with a little white lie, as they call it, if it makes your day better, or if you can get away with it. But the second I put the justice on the table, like how is she supposed to know that the guy that runs the vending machines happens to be a Sanhedrin advisor, right? I mean, this is what I do. I try to figure out how to resolve issues. But to me, it was kind of funny that the second, like, it became clear as day that this is the reality, and I can't help you, ma'am. I'm not trying to say you're lying. I don't. I'm not trying to say you're saying the truth. I'm just telling you that you can't prove me. There's if sometimes look, Shawn, sometimes someone can stick a leaf in the coin slot, and then the money gets stuck in there. So even if everything else is working, but the money is stuck in the machine, there's a lot of things that can go wrong. But I went through all the scenarios and I said, okay, everything is working properly. In my opinion, this lady is not saying the truth. Although if she can't prove me otherwise, why should I? So in other words, like you said, the justice element needs to be cut and dry from the truth or from prophecy. We know that in Judaism, a prophet cannot change the Torah. We know that no one can change even a tiny little thing in the Torah. And this is a whole new topic for another day. But the point is that nothing can change in the Torah. The Torah must stay just. And if we can understand justice, then we can move on to mercy. But there has to be an understanding of justice first. Okay, so let's move on to the 7 laws. So, Shawn, we know that the 7 laws of Noah include do not kill, do not steal, respect the family values, which includes not marrying someone, a girl that's already in a relationship or already, with someone else. Um, Establishing courts of justice is part of the 7 laws. So even if someone's not Jewish, he still has that mitzvah to conduct himself correctly if he wants to be considered a Noahide. Um, and of course, a few other ones like respecting animal rights, which is basically not to eat from the animal while it's still alive. Um, and what is it? Respect God, do not curse God, and so on. These can be found on our website and throughout the internet. 7 laws of Noah. So I wanted to talk specifically about a new development that shocked me actually. I always thought that Christianity kind of did a little bit of the work as far as spreading the word of Hashem and making the world a little bit more metukan, a little bit more fixed. But I'm surprised again and again and again how many hindrances to the truth seeker Christianity has packed into it. Um, a latest development that I've been having with the advisors, and some of the discussions we've had with our fellow Jewish friends has brought to my attention that a Catholic wedding actually has written in the details that basically the contract is null and void as it's being proposed, because a Catholic's not allowed to get divorced, um, and if they get divorced, it's a big sin or whatever. So in the first place, when someone's getting married, they make a small error on the contract of the wedding to null and void the contract in the first place. So I heard this from one of my Jewish friends, which spoke to someone who's been studying the Catholic Christian way, and I asked Ulf if this is true from the nation of Ephraim, and he told me yes, that's absolutely true. So this actually pushed my efforts to create the marriage contract for the Noahide community ever further, ever quicker, because I think that when a person finds the right woman, right, and he decides, okay, we are going to build a house together. We're going to have some kids. We want to be involved in the upbringing of the kids, not just when they're 18. Let me say hello to them, but I want to be involved every single day of their life in teaching them the way of the Torah and teaching them the seven laws of Noah. I'm taking this burden, this responsibility, this yoke upon myself, to be there for my children and to try to take them in the Torah way and the seven laws of Noah way. So once this contract is made between fellow Noahides, there should be an actual marriage contract that holds its value, that both of the parties respect, that will bound them legally according to Torah law, in in the sanctity of this marriage, um, so that they have a good foundation for the future generations. This would be what divides them from the nations that are just running around, without guidance, without Hashem in their life, and so on. So I thought that if someone's getting married in a Catholic setting, at least their marriage contract would be a little more serious. And unfortunately, as they say in the small letters on the bottom, the thing is null and void off the bat, which for me, again, as a Sanhedrin advisor looking at this is a terrible thing. This is a horrible thing, because there needs to be holiness, there needs to be sanctity, there needs to be a contract. There needs to be a contract that takes the love and the emotion that these two people have for each other and brings it down into a legal structure that can be respected, and this will create holiness in this relationship. What do you think about that, Shawn?
Well, I just got my license as a ordained minister, and I was hoping to perform some maybe Noahide weddings sometimes in the future. In the Jewish marriage, I think a lot of viewers who are Christians might not realize this, or not, maybe even non-Christians, is that the Jewish contract, the ketubah, right? Ketubah, or depending on if you're Ashkenazi or
Correct.
Sephardi,
Suba, yes. Suba, yes.
ketubah. Okay, so it has a lot of rights for a woman, under which conditions that the woman can, divorce the man, and and so forth. And she has rights. She has conjugal rights. She has monetary rights. She has shelter rights. A lot of Christians contracts don't even talk about it, let alone having a contract. It's meant to protect the woman. It's meant to protect or I mean, I'm assuming that's because the women are perceived as the weaker party in traditional marriages. If a man divorces her, she usually doesn't have a lot of options left. So the ketubah was designed to protect her. Nowadays, in certain Western contexts, cultures, some of that might not be necessary. I'm not sure. However, the divorce clause is also built in. I think Ben Shapiro. I'm not sure he's a Christian or Jewish. He might have converted. I'm not sure, but he talked about he had a traditional, sort of traditional marriage with his wife, and he signed the ketubah. And he made a joke that he was his dad. It was a place where it says how much is she worth. He put down like $10 million, and his dad was like, "Well, no. I mean, she's at best worth 1 million. No, you should put down 1 million." And Ben Shapiro said, "No, no, we're not going to get divorced, but I'm going to put down. I forgot what he put. I forgot if he put down 10 million or 1 million. So far as we know, he's still married right now. So the Jewish marriage, I think, in a from a Christian perspective, I think it's worth noting that it's meant to be fair to both parties. It's meant to be literally um, like a union contract, a legal contract that's meant to protect and put the expectations on the tables. Um, and but people did divorce. The divorces do happen in the Jewish community. I think one of the contrasts is that the Western Christian marriages, you're expected to, well, the woman's expected to obey the husband no matter what, but also you're expected to, marry until death do your part, and there's under no circumstances that you should ever divorce. Some people find that unrealistic. Some people find that too high of an expectation, and some people simply don't marry because they think that marriage is too high of a thing. I'm not gonna, if I marry this person, how could I even take the first step? Thinking that if I get into a bad marriage, the slightest problems in the marriage, I want to leave because this is for life. I'm stuck. It's like going to hell. It's like the eternally damned. So that's one contrast I saw in Jewish marriages between Jewish marriages and Christian marriages. Is that Jewish marriages, the
So Sean,
contract seems to be
you see here in
realistic.
your in what you're saying that the Jewish attitude is a little bit more realistic because at the end of the and also I think that it actually gives you more confidence to go into a marriage when you know that you can bounce if things go haywire. You know what I mean? I'm sorry for cutting you off. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Um, no, it's okay. It's okay. That's it. I was the last thing I was going to say is that I think a lot of Christians and a lot of just Westerners don't realize that a Jewish marriage is meant to be realistic. Now, again, you could contrast that with the Chinese culture. You know, Chinese people tend to view marriages in a very, and I talk to many Chinese people, not just, my own family, just Asians in general. We tend to take marriages in a more business-like manner. It's almost like a business contract. It's a little bit too realistic. Whereas the Jewish marriage, so for the Chinese people, I say to them that yes, Jewish marriages have all of that features of typical Asian marriage, which is you're realistic, you are approaching it, you're acknowledging the things first on the table, like sex, money, food, shelter, all those things people don't even like to talk about in the Western world. In the Western world, it's all about love. You can't even talk about anything physical. It's all about love. If you love me, you're gonna die for me. You're gonna, starve with me. You're gonna, you know, live in a
Suffer with
cardboard box
me.
with me. What's
Yeah.
that?
Suffer with me. Yeah.
With me, yeah, exactly. So it's like you got the two polarities, like I said earlier. But then I said say to Chinese people in the Jewish marriages, yes, a part of that is realistic, but part of that also acknowledges the love and affection. That you should factor in love and emotions. The soft
Right, Sean,
stuff.
I wanna say that a lot of I heard that in China, for example, because there's a very strong way the economy is functioning. Some of the I heard that it was on the news the other time, some time ago, that some people divorced in order so that they can buy more houses and be able to deal with their assets, like you said, purely business.
Yeah,
So you know what I'm talking about?
I can not that specifically, but I can totally see that happening. It's right. People would marry each other for I don't know, like I shouldn't say
Business
tax advantages,
purposes,
but
right? But Sean, what I wanted to say is that imagine there are some kids involved in this kind of a marriage, right? Now, of course, when a Jewish person marries, yeah, he'll definitely let the state know that he's getting married so that the state is aware. But when
Mhm.
the Jewish person is marrying, let's say in Israel, when you get married with a ketubah, you get married with a Jewish rabbi. And of course, you'll fill out some kind of paper with some government agency of some sort here in Israel. In other words, the Israeli government. And that's just, it, in other words, if something goes wrong, a Jewish couple should understand, appreciate, accept, process that if they have an issue, they will resolve it. These days, they'll resolve it in a Jewish court of law, Sanhedrin, in the near future, and hopefully, God willing. But in other words, the fact that we put it out there, if you're a Jewish guy's getting married in Germany, or if a Jewish guy's getting married in America, so they'll also let the local authorities know that they have kids and so on and so forth. But as far as their personal conduct, their private contract of this marriage, what they see as the real contract is the ketubah, the Jewish contract. And if something goes wrong, they're going to use the ketubah first and deal with it, hopefully, in a Jewish court of law. That's the halachic Jewish mindset. The reason we still let the local government know that we're getting married is so that our kids are declared non-mamzerim, non-mamzer. So even if there's another record being held in this country, whether it's Israeli, American, German, whatever, they should also know it should correspond cleanly. This kid is the child of this and this person. So for the Jewish family, it's very, very important that the lineage, father, mother, children, everything should be clean and understood, even if that means registering in the local government. But I was just saying that in the Chinese, I'm not sure exactly. Um, all I could say is like this, that if a Chinese couple, for them, the marriage is only purely business, and there's no chance, and they don't see it as a as a holy thing, or as a sanctity thing. In other words, if they dissolve that contract, they're still going to live in the same house. They're still not going to cheat on each other. Everything continues as business as usual. It's just a legal loophole. Then I can understand it. But if it's going to create some kind of um, and I still think that they should have a substitute contract, a religious contract, at the same time, maybe a Noahide contract that will solidify their marriage, regardless of whatever they're doing with the government or whatever business they have going on. But um, they should definitely not buy another apartment and do this whole scam if it's going to change the makeup of their family structure, or if it's going to have a bad influence or bad impact on their children. Imagine your parents are getting divorced because they want to buy another apartment, and from now on they live in two different houses, and they start, I'm not sure. I mean, you can probably talk more to that if I'm just going, if I'm mixing Western and Eastern cultures and in that regard. But I'm just saying that I think it's important in any case that there should be a marriage contract that both the father and the mother respect, that can create some kind of a mental stability between the parties. Like you said, it should also include the technical business elements. What happens in the case of a divorce? What do I give to my wife to take care of the kids before I let her go? So that's the get. The ketubah includes in it details of what happens if this doesn't work out. And on the other hand, it should be seen as a sacred thing, a holy thing. We should do it because Hashem said so, because it says it in the Torah. And of course, that goes for all the seven laws. We shouldn't only do it because it makes sense. We should also do it because Hashem said so, and He's beyond our little wisdom. As deep as we climb into this, um, you know, uh, there's always a little more to go. So, yeah, Shawn, closing statements on the seven laws and specifically on this topic. What would you like to say?
Well, both the United States and China has downsides, the cultures, and both are pretty extreme in different ways. In the United States, you look at the hookup culture and the failed relationships, which cause a lot of people, agonies, or it's not a perfect system. Of course, it has upsides. The fact that you're able to make that human connection based on emotion and affection, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it's missing the realism. It's missing, the sometimes it's
Responsibility. Yeah.
for some people, even sex is a physical thing. It's not coupled with like emotions and things like that. So in the Western world, it's everything is about the emotions, the intangibles. In China, you get crazy things like upside down. You got people that are trying to take advantage of the loopholes or tax laws or whatever physical logical reasons to do things like divorce for property and stuff like that. Both are pretty imbalanced. I feel like Jewish relationships is probably the closest thing to some kind of balanced relationship in this world. I mean, you may call it equality, you may call it balance. It's something that is just more balanced. I was going to say that with the Chinese people and the what I was going to say with the Chinese people, um, it's just
The Chinese have that. The Western has that. In other words, the
yeah,
Chinese represent like a dry brain, technical approach, and the West approaches it totally emotional, no consideration for the intellect, for the intellect. And the Jewish marriage takes both of these elements in together. When you go to a Jewish wedding, Shawn, you'll see that there's music, there's dancing. It's actually a very big mitzvah to celebrate in a Jewish wedding because the one of the purposes why guests come to a Jewish wedding is so that everyone knows that this guy is hanging out with this girl. So that later when this guy and this girl are walking around in the street, everybody says, "Oh yeah, yeah, that girl, those two, they're married. There's no sin involved in them being together." And when so the celebration of the wedding is not just um a celebration of let's prove to everybody how much money we have or whatever. There's actually holiness and sanctity in the actual wedding, and everything in Judaism is extremely particular and extremely meaningful. So I hope that we should be able to, as the Sanhedrin advisory, be able to provide this option to the Noahide community. And I'm actually very happy and congratulations on and Mazel Tov on you being a legally able to conduct this kind of things. And hopefully many Noahides will use your services in the near future, Shawn.
a
Okay.
lot of Americans are very scared of the word marriage, especially men. I think it's safe to say that marriages benefit women more than men in the United States. In China, marriages, I would say, benefit the men more than the women. This is completely
But Shawn,
opposite.
I would like to say that if a man is getting married in the United States and his contract of marriage is a contract that is legally only able to be manifested in a Jewish court of law, whether it's the Sanhedrin Advisory Board or a Jewish rabbis, so then the man who's getting married should not fear the American laws which favor the woman. Okay? Because
Yeah,
I'll explain it. Like, if you have a contract, if you have let's say you go to Israel and you get some shekels, right? You have some shekels in your wallet, and you go to Texas or you go to New York or you go to any place and you want to buy a coffee with the Israeli currency, they're going to tell you, sir, the dollar bill is a contract, and this contract is not valid in this system, in this country. We don't accept shekels here. We only accept U.S. currency, right? So if you have a ketubah, which is a legal contract, but this legal contract is only valid in a Jewish court of law. So as an American, you should not be worried about the precautions of marriage if you're signed up with the Sanhedrin initiative, with the Sanhedrin, with the Jewish courts.
I'm not talking about the solution. I'm talking about the problem. You're talking
Yes,
about the
yes,
solution, and that is what I'm saying. I'm talking about the problem right now. I'm
correct.
not saying that men should not be scared of the ketubah. I'm saying men are scared of marriages. When you use the word marriage, men associate it with a lifetime of damnation. If you don't believe in the afterlife or whatever, it's eternal suffering. That's what people associate it with. That's why marriages are not used in the Western culture anymore. I think 92% of marriages about in the United States, and I'm getting this from another person, so it could, but roughly 92%. It could be 70%. It could be 80%. 92%. The vast majority of marriages fail. They result in divorces and stuff like that. Which I mean, again, the Jewish community also had divorces, but a lot of people my age in the United States simply do not opt for marriage. That's not an option. They do not look for it. As soon as you say the word marriage, it triggers a mechanism in their bodies. They run the other direction. It's a knee jerk reaction. They don't want to hear the word marriage. So even if you want to, like, if you want to introduce to them, Jewish way of marriage or Noahide marriage, it might be better to even use a different word like ketubah. Do you want to
Tuba or loyalty contract or something. I don't know, I'm not sure.
just because words, for some people, it shouldn't happen this way. Ideally, you want everybody to be able to intellectually understand what you're talking about. But words do,
Yes.
they do trigger people. In the case, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's good. I'm not saying you shouldn't trigger people. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that words will cause somebody to run the other direction before you even have a chance to talk to them. So,
100%, Sean. I totally get that. And I remember when you told me that, for example, when you say when I say God, the first thing that comes to mind in a Christian's mind is Jesus. He's not thinking about the Father. He's not thinking about Hashem. Or when I say Messiah, the first thing that's come to mind in a Christian mind is is
Jesus,
Jesus. Yeah.
Savior, yeah.
So when I think about Mashiach, when I say Messiah, I'm referring to the Jewish King Mashiach, the Jewish Mashiach according to Jewish law. But so for me, it's important to say Mashiach. Let them go research what Mashiach is, and then they'll see that it's similar but not quite Jesus. Um,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
same thing is Hashem. Let them go research what Hashem is, and they'll see that it's God but not quite Jesus. And the same thing is here. A ketubah is what you might call marriage, but not quite, because you probably think marriage is a bad thing, and you probably have an idea of marriage, whether it's in a non-Jewish context. So definitely a little different than what a Jewish context is. So I definitely appreciate that, and
The reason I
we have to
say
take that
that
into consideration. Yeah.
yeah, the reason I say that, and possibly in the Muslim world as well. I'm not too familiar with the Muslim world, but I imagine it's somewhat a little bit similar to the Chinese cultures. That in the United States, for example, I did say that marriages, favor tend to favor, not always, but tend to favor women more than men. Whereas in China, marriages tend to favor women more than, men more than women. It's like you look at the custody, right? When a couple gets divorced in the Western world, most of the times the custody is given to the mother because the Western mentality is that kids need nurture more than anything. Whereas in China, in a custody battle or just a custody dispute in a divorce, the kid is usually given to the father. I guess part of the reason is because you're thinking about responsibility. The father is more responsible than the mother, and also the father has more resources. And also, it's also I think sort of looking at maybe subconsciously looking at and I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty confident that in the Chinese culture that I grew up in, you assume that the kids need more guidance than necessarily the nurture part that comes from a mother. One is spiritual, one is physical. So, and it's kind of interesting because, like, I've heard this from, like, the Jewish rabbis. They say that under the circumstances in which a kid is conceived, it affects their personality, and the personality collectively affects the culture. You look at the Chinese culture where, it tends to be in a case where women are happy in a relationship. Women are not happy in a marriage. And that creates a mentality, that creates a personality in which a kid is born into this world feeling like their mother didn't want them to be there. So that plays into, certain aspects of like self-esteem and things like that. Again, it reflects the entire culture and how they look at the government and things like that. It goes into a whole rabbit hole. Whereas
Yeah,
in the
it's
United
not it's not
States,
it's not fun to think that you're a mistake. Definitely and of course if the world is supposed to have like we spoke about this, I think if the world is supposed to have meaning to someone, then and you tell them, look, you're special, Hashem has a special plan for you, and so on and so on. It doesn't help very much to tell them, hey, you're a mistake, because if they think you're a mistake, then maybe the whole world's a mistake, maybe my existence is just a coincidence, and so
it,
on and so
it,
on. So yeah,
creates a personality that compensates itself either through marriages or through actions later on, which ultimately I think when the world comes together, balances itself out. Whereas in the Western world, it's also not fun. It's not. On one hand, it's not fun to be told you're a mistake. On the other hand, it's also not fun to grow up without a father. Your mothers in the United States, you got a lot of fatherless kids in the United States. Their mothers love them. They got a lot of nurture. They got taken care of. But when they grow up, they are missing that social interaction that you get from your father, which a lot of psychologists or whatever, some people say the father is the socializing parent. So it's also not fun to be, yes, you're not a mistake by your mother. You're meant to be in this world, but your father doesn't like you. Whoever's responsible for conceiving you doesn't want you to be around, doesn't want to interact with you. That's also not fun. So you get that a lot with, especially nowadays, I think in the United States, certain socioeconomic conditions, like the poor people, wherever it's not that they don't have the money necessarily. It's not that they don't have the food. A lot of lower class socioeconomic people in the United States, they have food, but they're missing the education, they're missing the guidance, they're missing the love from their fathers. So it's also not fun. So I think in China and the United States, it's nobody nobody has it all.
yeah.
Maybe the Jewish people has it all. I don't know. Maybe the Jews, because of the ketubah, maybe you have someone who doesn't tell you a mistake. You also have someone that the father that interacts with you and everything. Um, so
Well,
I don't know.
the message of Judaism in general is that you're not a mistake. The message of Judaism is that everything is special, everything is important. Um, we, we walked through this back in the day, like about a half a year ago. We actually went deep into this that the hooker thinks that she's not important. She thinks that the other person's not important. That's why she's trying to convince the other guy, hey, let's have a one night stand. Who cares who you are? Who cares who I am? We're all not important. We all don't mean anything. Let's have a good time right now and never think about it again. Um, it's a sad place to be, and in Judaism, it's considered a terrible place to be. It's connected to laziness and depression, which is considered the devil. Sitra Achra, the other side. The gates of impurity. So when all Judaism is really saying the whole time, the whole Judaism is basically saying how this world is important, everything is important, you are important, you are special. That's the common drive of Judaism, that everybody's important.
The thing
Uh,
is, when you have
yeah.
when you have, sorry, when you have a zonado, I just want to point out real quick is that when you have a zonah situation, like a promiscuous woman or something like that, in the King Solomon's tale of the cutting the baby in half, the two hookers that went up to him and wanted to get custody of the kid. So in that situation, the kid is not a mistake to the mother. The mother loves the kid. Even if you're a whore, even if you're a hooker, if you're pregnant, most hookers would still give some kind of care to their kids growing up. Now they might have a problem finding their baby daddies and all that kind of stuff. That's a different problem. But they're missing that fatherly love. In the Chinese situation, a lot of the Asian situation is the opposite. The father definitely wants you to be around. It's the mother that feels like she's being forced into the relationship. So I think sometimes, in a case where, like, say the woman's raped, the woman is maybe not even raped, maybe like feel like she's being forced into marriage. She didn't want the kid or something like that. You know, um, that creates an opposite problem. That creates a psychological condition in which the kid feels like the father wants him. He's meant to have a purpose in this world. However, he's not deserving to all the physical pleasures or physical needs of this world because of the mother. It's kind of interesting how like an entire culture could have like a propensity towards like you know one type of you're a mistake and another type of you're a mistake. So people you either usually are missing the feminine, the motherly side, or they're missing the fatherly side. And I think
Yeah, and I
atheists, a
want to
lot
say
of,
also, Sean, that the Jewish way of looking at this kind of stuff is we say that a marriage is compared to Kriyat Yam Suf, to the splitting of the sea. And the reason we compare a marriage to Kriyat Yam Suf and not to the creation of the world is because the creation of the world was a miracle that happened, a one-time miracle, and and that's it. After that miracle of creation, the world is standing. But the splitting of the sea is a miracle that happens continuously. In other words, Hashem has to maintain this miracle so that the walls of water stand. It's not normal that walls of water should stand. So this continual miracle that needs upkeep every split second is the one that we compare in Kabbalah, in Hasidic philosophy, in the secrets of the Torah, in the Jewish tradition, to marriage. In other words, marriage is a whoever merits to marry in holiness and in sanctity should appreciate every single second of it, and it is a ongoing upkeeping miracle. That's how Judaism looks at it. And I want to also say that regarding custody of the kids, the Rambam says that according to Jewish law, in a case where there is a divorce and the kids need to go with the parents, the boys go with the father and the girls go with the mother. Um, uh, Logically, that's what the Rambam says is the law. He doesn't explain why, of course, but if I'd have to guess, me personally, just guess, I would say that the boys at the end of the day, as hard as it might be when they're growing up without the mother giving them nurturing, but at the end of the day, they need to emulate their father, and the girls need to emulate their mother. So taking all the kids and giving them to the father, like in China, or all the kids to the mother, like in America, it, it's not the right answer as far as the Torah goes, in a divorce scenario. You know, just wanted to point that out as well.
well, if he says that the kids should go towards mother like they do in the United States, so maybe he's saying that it's better to be an American than a Chinaman because it's easier to be an American than to be a Chinese person.
Easier to
Because
be again.
so the divorces in China usually results in the kid given to the father, whereas divorces in the United States usually result in the kid is being given to the mother. So if the Rambam is saying you should be like an American and give the kid to the mother, then I'm just
No, no,
that
the Rambam doesn't say you should give the kid. The Rambam says the girls go to the mother, and the boys go to the father. I'm sorry, maybe you missed that.
think I missed that. I may have missed that. Sorry if I did. Uh, okay, that's interesting. That's interesting though, because in the United States, usually the daughter is closer with the father, and the mother is closer with the son. In China,
Right,
I would say
right, but you know
it's the
that
opposite.
let's say in America, 30 times crime rate for the boys who grew up with a single mother, but nobody talks about the girls. The girls are fine growing up with the mother, and I think that that's because if you have to choose between a parent uh in a divorce situation and you're the boy, you should probably, as painful and as rough as your father might be, it's going to prepare you for the real world and for your role as a man in the real world. Um, and if you had to only fly with one wing, then that would be the wing you should fly with. In other words, you should go with your father.
I
That's,
I,
I
yeah,
think, the Torah way.
I kind of agree with that. I mean, unless your dad like flat out kills you or something, or does like heavy damage or something. But I think even the negative interactions I've had with no, my father, like I'm not saying like, I'm not saying how negative or anything like that, but even negative interactions is still interaction. It's still lessons learned. It's still ultimately, I think it serves to empower you. You can now to learn from the mistakes of your father, or now why you disagreed with them or something like that. So I can totally see that. Yeah, uh, but I don't think abuse is okay. But I mean,
No,
but
no, I'm
then
not talking about abuse.
it's,
I'm talking about a divorce that's,
right, yeah, yeah.
I mean, any divorce is pretty messed up, but I'm talking about a divorce that's relatively, I guess, it's because the parents can't get along is one thing, that's usually the main purpose, point of a divorce, or because some of
Right.
the parents think that after the divorce they're gonna hit gold somehow, or that I don't, as a kid from a divorced family, I think that a divorce could maybe make it less bad for the kids, but it never makes it better because a kid will always look for his father or his mother together, and everything in his life that will remind him that there was a tear, a rip between them both, will just make him feel, ah, it didn't work for them. And then you have to decide, do you give up on trying to recreate the scenario, or are you going to try to work very, very hard to learn from the mistake in a positive way and turn it into something positive and say, okay, I'm going to make my kids have a much better life than what I experienced. I'm going to go to therapy, whatever, as humiliating as I need to be. I'm going to do whatever I need to do in order to make sure that my kids have a better life than I had. And of course, knowing what you don't want to happen is half the solution, but figuring out what the right thing to do is the other half. And of course, each person has to find out what they need to do. So, Shawn, let's go into the chakras. Can you tell us about the chakras and how they compare a little bit to the seven laws of Noah in general? We're talking about the harmony of the human being. Can you expound on that a little bit for our friends?
Yeah, sure. I would love to. So the chakra system, there might be people out there that would, probably expound upon it a little bit further. There's so chakras. I would say they're very similar, very very similar. When you hear how people describe them, very similar to the 10 sefirots in Kabbalah. Um, and if you, I'm not sure if this is official or not, but if you take all the sefirots and take the left and right, combine them together, you eventually consolidate them into seven. Seven centers, chakras, whatever you want to call it. Chakra, I think it's I forgot what the actual word means. Is a Sanskrit word or something like that. A lot of interesting things. I learned this at Chabad in LA actually. Uh, uh, somebody told me that a Jewish person who did a lot of studies found a lot of similarities between the Indian culture and the Jewish culture. You look at a lot of the mantras, for example, Shekhinah, that's a mantra word. Now, a lot of Sanskrit reading people might not know what it means, but we know what Shekhinah, in Hebrew is very specific. The Om, other words like Bij mantras, like for example, Shrim, Klim, Hrim, those mean something in Hebrew. Like Hrim means mountains, Shrim means singing, right? Or Brazil
Shirim,
means
Shirim, yes,
yeah, they're all
yes.
Hebrew words. Like like I was like astounded when I found that out. But you asked most people who say these mantras, they have no idea what it means. They might attribute it to different things, but so there's clearly because of how specific it is, clearly some kind of like communication between the two cultures. Now, secular Israelis will say that the Jews stole it from the Indians, but religious Israelis will say that it was brought to that part of the world through one of Abraham's wives, Hagar. The gifts that was brought over there to help people or something like that. Anyways, so the chakra system, the to jump straight to what the seventh chakra is, it basically corresponds with body all the way from top to bottom, and they're typically color coded in the color of the rainbow. They're different. I've heard from different people where the colors came from and stuff like that, but generally speaking, the root chakra on the bottom is red, and goes up to orange, goes to yellow, then green, then blue, purple, and the crown. So the crown is literally Keter. Anyways, but the people who practice it, like it's it's so anyway, so what I found was that the seven Noahide laws, it starts with the recognition of Hashem, the recognition of God, unity. So that is, sounds like it's very closely aligned with the crown chakra, at the top of your head. The next one is, there are different arrays of ranging the seven Noahide laws. The second one, the article I wrote was not murder, and the loza ratzach. Ratzach could also mean, the prohibition of negative intentions, and the intentions come from, the third eye or something. Some people say the third eye is like the da'at in the sefirot. Again, depending on but generally speaking, that's that tend to be the case. And then you got the speech. You got do not blasphemy, do not misuse speech. The speech is coming from your throat. So the third one is the throat chakra. And the heart, the heart chakra, literally the symbol of the heart chakra. This is kind of interesting. It's the sign of the Star of David. It's the same symbol. Where exactly it came from, I think the Star of David came from one of maybe King Solomon's time, or I think you might get it from different sources. But anyways, but the symbol of the Star of David on the Israeli flag, the triangle and the down triangle together, that is the symbol of the heart chakra, and which makes a lot of sense because we've said in earlier videos is that Israel is the adjudication, it's the medium point of the Western world and the Eastern world. And in this context of the chakra system, the heart chakra is the mediation between the spiritual side and the physical side. So
I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
no, it's okay. It's okay. And it's then you go down to the the lower ones. The lower three chakras represents the physical aspects, of your spiritual centers in your body. So you got the solar plexus, which is associated with self-esteem. You got the what do they call it? The sacral chakra. It's associated with the sexual organs. Also, a lot of people associate with the yesod, on the sefirot. And the root chakra, some people associate with malchut. Some people also associate with yesod. But you look at the functions that they take care of; it's very similar to the sefirot. Like the root chakra represents the physical needs of a person. Some of it is the sexual needs, the physical needs, security and things like that. Just like the malchut, in concept, I guess. So again, so you go to the solar plexus. It's dealing with physical feelings, but it's also closest to the spiritual side. So that seems to mostly correspond with do not eat from animals because you're trying to be ethical. And then going down to another chakra, solar plexus, do not steal. Sexual immorality, because the solar plexus deals with sexuality. And all the way on the bottom, the root chakra deals with physical things, properties that's attached to you. So do not steal, because it's physical. So that way, the heart chakra, excuse me, because of the way it is, it corresponds with decision making. It just corresponds with justice. It could be seen that way. And like you said earlier, maybe that's why the Jews were chosen to be a part of that initiative in this world by Hashem to create a justice, justice system to bring the world together. So that could be, associated with the heart chakra. But coincidentally, it's also, the Star of David symbol for some reason. But the symbol is very, very easy to interpret because, you got the the triangle going opposite ways. You could be like, America, China coming together, right? You got Israel, you got the secular people, you got the religious people, you got the Sephardic Jews and the Ashkenazi Jews coming together. So it's the bringing together of the opposites, and that
Right.
I
And
would
it's
say
also, I think it's a synchronizing shape, and I mean, there's a lot to say about the Star of David, but of course, it's pointing in all directions to show that Hashem is everywhere. Some say it might have been a shield, like an actual shield in that shape, which can be used um, as a weapon as well in war. But
yeah.
definitely, there's an arrow pointing up and an arrow pointing down, as above, so below, which is symbolizing Hashem's presence in all universes and in all dimensions, as they say these days.
Kabbalah
So
is like any spiritual traditions, whether it's the Chinese, Indians, even Christians. Some of the esoteric Christians all know about, I guess, Kabbalah, or at least some of the concepts in Kabbalah. Like what you're talking about. As above, so below. That's a very commonly understood or talked about thing in the spiritual communities. I'm not talking about the religious communities. I'm talking about the people who take it a little bit further and become a little bit, one step closer to, the spiritual side of things. Um, anyways,
interesting. Okay, so let's go to the next thing. We spoke about last time briefly, and I want to expound on that a little bit for our viewers. Um, we had this question. We call it in Yiddish, we call it a Klutzkasche. In other words, it's a question that sounds like it's a good question when you hear it, but when you hear the answer, the validity of the question kind of falls away a little bit. Um, regarding we said that in some people might say that it can't be that Hashem flooded the entire world at the same time. It doesn't sound natural, and therefore maybe it's safe to say that the flood referred to in the Bible is not 100% what happened. Hashem didn't flood the entire world at the same time. Maybe it was a local flood that only happened in the area of Israel and so on. And maybe the Chinese and the Australians and other people were not part of the flood. So I asked you, being that you grew up in China, you're born in China, um, as far as the Chinese tradition goes, what is the tradition regarding the Great Flood? So, Shawn, please let us know what you told me last time, and maybe you can expound on that as well a little bit.
sure, yeah. Everything Rabbi said was correct. Well, okay. I'm kind of kidding, but I want to put it pretty frankly. Is that I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know for sure. I'd probably be lying if I said that I know for absolute as a fact, the flood covered the entire earth and, exactly as Bible described it. Maybe it didn't. I don't know. I can't say for sure. But at the same time, I can't also say I'd be lying if I said I know absolutely for sure that's not the case. But one thing I am sure of is that in our Chinese culture, our mythology, our character, the Chinese character, the words have numerous uncanny references to things that could only be categorized as a flood. First of all, we have the myth of 女娲娘娘女娲补天 there's a cool sure. There's the story of this lady, this woman named Nuwa. Like one day, the sky was leaking water, and the water was so bad it was flooding everything. I forgot if the story says it flooded the entire Earth, or maybe one person was like that. I don't remember, but this. I mean, you can look it up. You just type in NUWA, flood China. If you Google that, I'm sure you'll be able to find something. I mean, I have a laptop here. We can look it up later if we have time. So she went up and she means like she fixed up the sky so that it's no longer leaking, and she saved everybody, and or something like that. Um, Yeah, so her name's Niwa. So there was that one story of the flood reference, but also you look in the characters. The characters, there are characters that talk about like some kind of it actually talks about not the flood, but the Noah specifically. I have to just so that I can be more specific. Let me just if I can real quick look it up. Um, it's there's certain characters like and you can look at this on YouTube. They're the first time I saw a presentation was at a Chinese church, and at this church it was at in New Haven, Connecticut, where there are a lot of people from Yale. They're either professors or doctors that are going to Yale. So you got a lot of like high intellect people who put together a very intellectually pleasing presentation that it shows you the character. And I mean, I would say like almost all of us. I mean, we're all Chinese in that group. I want to say the only people who couldn't read it are maybe the kids. Um, Chinese characters and flood Noah. Let me see if it comes up. It should come up. So this one is this one's like it says in this study we analyze all the ancient bronzeware, oracle bones, seal characters, cash flood delusions. Strongly suggests that the ancient Chinese flood legend indeed originated from flood Noah's family and the remnant creatures of the ark. I want to find the actual characters. Like there's a character, and not just the flood, even like biblical references. Like the word, I think the word is jing, means like prohibition. Is two trees on top and the one tree on the bottom. I mean, but you got like some Westerners that go, "Oh, you're just seeing stuff. You're being delusional. You're looking at things that doesn't." But I'm telling you, like anybody that speaks Chinese, anybody that grew up like writing and reading the Chinese characters, you will know that there's certain things that are just not like, oh, that looks like a dog or tiger or something like that. The character that looks like this character, 横竖撇, nah, that character, it means tree. There's not a lot of the discrepancies. Oh, it looks like a dog. Chinese characters does not work that way. They're called radicals, and they're called 偏旁部首. I forgot what the English translation is. They're the
So,
parts that
okay, I hear. So you're saying that the Chinese tradition, as far as you know, cross-references the Bible, cross-references the Ark of the no. Of course, this happened uh some 4,000 years ago. So we're kind of strung out here on a very long traditional line. But you're saying that as far as you know, and of course, as you said, you preface that, of course, these days, our lives are just you know with Hashem's grace, 120 years and thousands of years before us, after us, we kind of feel a little insignificant sometimes. But as far as what we know, you're saying that there's definitely um, a tradition in the Chinese culture that you are aware of, that you grew up studying, that cross references a flood on the level and the magnitude that we study about in the Torah. Yeah.
Chinese people definitely at some point probably experienced it. Either they experienced a collective hallucination, or there's some. I tell you to people, look, I mean, we have that in our Chinese characters. So either the Chinese people were just as crazy as the Jews at one point, or something physical actually happened. But you can't deny things like I just looked it up. Like the word flood is 洪水. Hong. You look up Chinese TV, you look up CCTV. Every time they report like a flood, they're still going to use the same word, Hong. 洪水. It's got like a Sandian. It's like the water radical, and so it's made up of flood, water, uh, and excuse me, together. Well, that's earth. Wait, hold on. Okay, maybe. Anyways, but it has the word eight in there. Let me see. Look at a better one. Like a Zhou. Uh, yeah, I think that's Zhou. Zhou, the ship, right? It's made from the word Zhou Dan or whatever. Ship eight. The word for eight looks like that. I mean, it's undeniable. It's not. If anybody knows Chinese, that you can't look at a character like that. Oh, it looks like an eight, but it looks like a dog. No, it is eight. It's like an English letter. If you draw the word D, it's not A, B, C. It's not F. It is D. You know. And eight people. So the word ship has the character, the sub characters, radicals, and everything of eight people and a small ship. And like I mean, the guy made a presentation about it. I mean, they're better put together things than I can in just like maybe a couple minutes. But their words like sacrifice. It's made from when some of these words are like, okay, this is not a good one, but there's a YouTube video you can look up. I mean, it's out there. I mean, it's out there. You can ask a Chinese person. I can find the link and maybe you can put it on the website.
Sure,
Actually,
sure.
I
If
think
you send me the link, I will add it to the live stream.
yeah,
No problem.
yeah. The people that actually put together the that actually put together these
Correlations.
yeah these correlations. I mean these. I mean even when you're looking at like Sun Tzu's Art of War, you're looking at like the what do you call it? What is it? The Taoist book. It's called. I'm like not I Ching. Although I Ching is kind of interesting, but it's the other one. Dao De Jing, Dao Te Ching, or however the Westerners say it. Oh yeah, it's called Ancient Chinese Characters Support Genesis. I think that should be pretty good. All of the people, so it would make sense. But there are over 200. Let me see. I need to find the one where the Chinese person actually does it, not like not
Okay, so Sean,
some.
you check on that later, and I'll add it later to the bottom of the website. I just want to cover one last topic, and with that, we'll end the show. Um, Obviously, the world knows that Israel right now is at war. Um, Recently, we killed one of the highest ranking Hamas um, leader members. He was here in Lebanon, and we killed just him. So we sent one of those missiles that goes under a building, directly targeting him himself. So again, of course, you see that the IDF are using precision missiles. They're not trying to just vengefully destroy and kill people for no reason. So in Lebanon, they attacked him. I think he was under a building that was like a 4, 5, 6 story building. They hit him directly. Of course, there was some damage and some other people died, but they killed one of the most important leading figures of the arms and the political party of the Hamas in Lebanon. He was in charge of deploying the troops. Some of the guys say that he's the mastermind behind October 7th attack. We also have a change on the ground in real time. A lot of the Palestinians actually feel indebted and are extremely grateful and thankful to the IDF um, for saving their lives because the IDF keeps calling them and telling them when they're going to bomb. Hey, are you out of the house? You and your family, your wife, your kids are far away? Yes. Okay, boom. We're bombing the house because Hamas are using it as a thing. We just wanted to make sure you're not there. So what's happening now is actually kind of interesting. We have people in Gaza, Palestinians they're sick and tired of paying the price for Hamas's dysfunctional mistakes. They're calling up the IDF and they're talking to them and they're giving them real time information about how to take out Hamas. So this information has saved lives in real time. This information is gold for the IDF, and the IDF are acting on this information. So, of course, right now the IDF has almost full control of the north of Gaza, and it's very possible that the army is going to stay there, and they're not going to allow people to come back to the north of Gaza. It's going to be resettled by Jewish people or by Israeli citizens um, as a safety precaution. I talked to some of the guys, here in Israel, and they tell me, oh, only recently has the defense of Israel become such a hot topic. So I said to them, I don't see it that way because in my eyes, uh, Israel is as big as New Jersey. There's like literally nowhere to go You're surrounded by sworn enemies. You don't have a buffer zone to protect yourself from anything. So every day in Israel is defense priority number one day, you know, especially when you have people within the technical borders of Israel launching attacks. So, of course, the war seems to be going okay in favor of Israel. Of course, there's a change in mindset amongst the population. People are starting to realize that this whole wishy-washy try to make peace with people that are sworn to kill you. I mean, you got to trust them after a while. They tell you, we plan on killing you all. We hate your guts. We're jealous of you. Um, and we want to destroy everything you stand for because your existence alone makes us feel inferior. It gives us bad vibes. So when people tell you that and there's nothing you can do to change that jealousy and hate, you got to take them for their word. Hamas puts out their list of how they function. So of course the right wing was always about this kind of style of really, because when you're a traditional Jew, you understand things on a more basic level, a gut kind of level. And so the religious Jews have always seen what Hamas is saying and taken them for their word. That's why the right wing, like Itamar Ben-Gvir, got 14 seats this past election, and he's kind of the extreme right wing, the most radical guy in town. And I hope that the big change is that a lot of the guys on the left, liberals, but not like liberals in the libertarian kind of way, more like liberals in the blue hair, um, you know, gay pride parade style. The kind of guys that thought that we can talk to the terrorists, we can talk to the Palestinians. Maybe they don't have enough jobs, maybe they don't have enough money, maybe that's the problem. We can work something out and blah blah blah. So they totally took that approach, that weak approach, and unfortunately, this Western uh, liberal leftist, um, honestly unrealistic for the Middle East uh, terminology, has infected the army. It has infected the elites of Israel, the deep state in Israel, and has put the defense ministry to sleep, basically. And Bibi, amongst the high-ranking judges in Israel and the high-ranking IDF generals, also are part of this disease, really this disease of unrealistic relations with these terrorists. So hopefully, Israel right now is going through this process of waking up and staring the devil in the eyes. Like Jordan Peterson says, you have to stare at the abyss, and you have to find out what the deal is with the abyss. So I just want to add one thing, and then I'll be happy to hear how you're processing this war. Um, in the Torah, it says that Yishmael, it says, "Ki lo yirash et ben ha'ama hazot im beni im Yitzchak." When Sarah is telling Avraham that you have to send Yishmael away, she says, because he will because he will not inherit this son of this ben ha'ama. Ha'ama is the servant woman, which is Hagar, which is Yishmael's son. He will not inherit together with my son Yitzchak. And with that, she's basically saying, okay, if Hagar is a servant girl, does she inherit anything from the master? No. And if her son is a son of a servant girl, does he inherit anything from the master? No. So and of course, Rashi and the oral tradition tells us that it wasn't for no reason that Yishmael was sent away. He was actively trying to kill Yitzchak. He was jealous of Yitzchak. He was telling him, kind of like the jokes of like, put an apple on your head and I'll shoot it off. But at the last second, he would aim it at Yitzchak's face, and then Yitzchak would move out of the way. That kind of stuff. Sarah, seeing this, she's like, this guy's gonna kill my son. Avraham, of course, was a little bit blinded. He didn't notice this escalation, because Yishmael is also his son, and he loved him as well. But Sarah comes and tells Avram, you got to send this kid away. Avram gets prophecy from Hashem, and Hashem tells him, listen to your wife. Whatever she's saying, listen to what she's saying. So he ends up sending her away because of jealousy. Of course, we also have this jealousy amongst the Jewish people when the brothers want to sell Yosef, right? So that says that "Vayisneu oto v'lo yachlu dibro ito leshalom." They hated him with such a passion, they were not ready to talk peace with him. So we also saw this in the politics of Israel when, right before the war, there was this whole um, struggle between making reforms for the justice or not. This was a very big political issue. And this I think represents the jealousy of the brothers to Joseph, kind of this internal jealousy issue that the Jews have with each other that they need to unpack. And then we have again, like I said earlier, the jealousy of Yishmael. Now, I just want to bring in a little bit of the Zohar, which is the secrets of the Torah, and the Zohar brings that the angel of Yishmael, his minister in heaven, comes to God for 400 years and says, doesn't Yishmael deserve an inheritance together with the children of Israel? And God says, why would I give him an inheritance? And he says, well, it's true that he is the son of a maidservant. However, he got circumcised, a bris milah. He has a circumcision. Doesn't that include him in the covenant of God? So God says, okay, I'll give Yishmael the land of Israel while I exile my children throughout the world. And just like the bris milah, the circumcision of Yishmael, of Islam, has no substance under it, so too the land of Israel will be barren in the time that Yishmael is holding it for the last few thousand years. And interestingly enough, if we look at the Dome of the Rock, it literally looks like a circumcision, if you think about it. Which honestly, like we said, as above, so below, according to Hasidus, we know that everything is mirrored. So literally, it looks like that is what you see over there. It's maybe they thought that they're doing an architectural structure. But honestly, it literally represents the time, which is honestly expired right now, because the Jewish people are already here almost, we're coming up to 100 years back in Israel, and you see that the land is flourishing. Now, some people might tell me, hey, Yossi, you're going down on Islam when you say that there's no substance to the traditions of Islam, or there's no substance to the practice of Islam. So the only justification I can see right now is that when you see the Hamas terrorists slaughtering the people on October 7th, raping them while screaming Allahu Akbar, God is great in the same sentence while they're doing these atrocities, you're forced to conclude that these guys have no clue how to manifest the Torah. Do not kill, do not steal, the seven laws of Noah. Even in the Quran, it says that you're not allowed to do these kind of things. So, yes, I will say that the only thing that Islam has is the fact that the merit that they have is the fact that they, till today, actually, many of them circumcise themselves when they're 13 years old. But at the end of the day, this whole thing is expired. And there's one last thing I want to touch up on, Shawn, which is that Gaza, some people might say, what about all the innocent Palestinians that are in Gaza? Why are they to suffer the wrath? You know? And in the Torah, we have the story of Shechem, which the entire city was killed by Shimon and Levi because uh, because Shechem, Hamor, the son of the leader of Shechem, raped Dinah, the sister of the tribes. So when they come to Hamor, they say, "Hey, give us our sister back." He says, "No, you're not getting your sister back. If you want, we'll all become one big family." And then he tells Shimon and Levi, "What can we do to become one big family?" They say, "Well, so then if you're telling me that we're not going to get our sister back, even though you raped her clearly, then the entire city should circumcise themselves, and then you guys will be one family." And nobody in Shechem in the entire city objected. They're all going to circumcise themselves. They all got circumcised on the third day. Shimon and Levi go and kill everybody. So So the question is again, why did Shimon and Levi kill the entire town? Because only one person, Hamor, did a sin with their sister. The answer is that, as we just spoke about, that in the seven laws of Noah, which is applicable to all mankind, including the people of Shechem and in our day, in the people of Aza, they have an obligation to do things according to Jewish law. Not Jewish law, according to what they see fit. And because when the Shimon and Levi come and they say, we need our sister back, you took her without permission, you're raping our sister, and he says no, and nobody in town objects, and there's no court system, there's no legal body that they can go to process this issue, then and then not only that, so then you might say, okay, maybe Hamor and Shechem were like the Hamas. Nobody, everyone was scared and intimidated to even speak out against them, right? So maybe nobody said anything because they're scared they're going to get killed. But then when Shimon and Levi say, okay, so all of you are going to have to get circumcised, at that point, the people in the town could have said, hey, 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 I didn't rape your sister. I am not connected to what this sin that these people are doing. Okay? I'm not connected to this sin, and we don't have to get circumcised because this guy decided to rape your sister. They could have separated themselves from the sin without taking much risk to their own lives, at least as far as the punishment goes. But they didn't do that either. And once they did not separate themselves from the sin, then unfortunately, it's clear as day in the positive and in the negative that there's no courts of justice. And in that moment, the entire city becomes part of the punishment as well. And that's why I was happy actually to report that the situation in Gaza is changing, that a lot of the local Palestinians are separating themselves from the Hamas. They're separating themselves from what happened on October 7th, and they're saying, "Hey, IDF, you guys saved my family, you saved my life. I'll tell you where the terrorists are. We're gonna cooperate with you in order to destroy the terrorism because we're not about that. We're not about that." So I'm happy that there's at least a way for people to separate themselves from the horrible things that we saw on October 7th. Anyway, Shawn, what are your thoughts about the war? Um, I don't know how long you guys think. I mean, in America, I don't know, not every day. You might. I mean, tell me what you think and what's going on.
Well, we had this similar conversations about law enforcement before, and you were telling me about how if someone goes into your house uninvited and they refuse to leave, that you would just try to reason with the guy. You wouldn't call the police, or maybe I don't remember. Maybe you didn't, but I remember. And we eventually were talking, and we're talking about how to get the good guy out of your house, and you know stuff like that happens. There are people like that because we have free will. We have the power as human beings to do the unreasonable, the evil, the stupid, on purpose. We have that choice at our disposal. And to get the other person to not do those things, it's not right to tell them, hey, don't do it, because they can't do it if they want to. But what if their actions treads on your own freedom, your own liberties, your own interests? Well, that's why we have law enforcement. That's why we have people that are trained to, and just like the Israeli soldiers, the cops don't go into situations just, like to shoot everybody or tase everybody. There's training involved to do it surgically, to do it precisely. And there's a lot of technologies that are coming up right now. And, I'm looking towards a future where we have more capabilities of achieving military objectives with even less collateral damage. You said that missile came down on that guy, surgically killing just him and nobody else.
No, I do believe that there were some others that were killed because he's such a priority target.
Yeah,
But you can see the video literally from the pizza shop across the street that everyone sees now, and you can tell that comparatively to to what could have happened. You know, they targeted him and anyone that was around him. Unfortunately, I guess was killed. Maybe up to maybe 10 people, according to what they're reporting in Lebanon. I'm not sure if that's true, but the point is that you actually see the people walking around in the street 5 minutes later, and they don't seem like they're running into shelters. In other words, they kind of know how Israel shoots and how Israel does their business. They didn't feel threatened to keep walking around after they realized what the point was. In other words, um, that says like which is different when Israel is fired upon, whether from Gaza, then everyone runs to the shelters because we know that the way the enemy is firing is indiscriminate. Um, it's a difference in.
Well, collateral damage happens. Unfortunately, it's. I'm not saying it should happen, but it's like even if just let's just say you have let's just say you're doing circumcision, right? I mean, you're gonna have not everything's perfect in this world. That's why we continually achieve better technology, better tactics, better ways of doing things. They're talking about drones that will be able to fly and targets individual people as opposed to shooting at across a distance and you don't know who you're shooting at. In the law enforcement community, there's this stock called RAP. It's a company. It's a it basically it's a technology that wraps around the person's body. It's a less than lethal, non-lethal option for police forces. Now, is it completely effective? I'm not sure, but the fact that we're still coming up with these kind of technologies, in the end, though, no matter how much technology you develop, the enemy could also have it. So in the end, a lot of times these kind of opposing technologies can counter each other. Like when artillery was invented, siege warfare kind of that put a stop to siege warfare all the way until World War I or World War II when we had trench warfare again, because you can build up a fortification, but the artillery can just punch through it. And I think war is always a continuum of diplomacy, and if that doesn't work, then you go with business, then you go with light action. You hope that doesn't escalate every step of the way. But I don't know. I don't know. The way I look at it is that the religious Jews, such as yourself, in the militaries of the world, we have officers versus enlisted. The officers have the spiritual, the intellectual, oftentimes the education, the connections to make the big picture decisions for people. But when they give the orders, it's usually up to the enlisted folks, the NCOs, to actually carry it out. So the way I look at it is that Israel, you guys hold the ancient wisdom of your culture and your country. The Torah, the Noahide laws, everything. You have the big picture. I think that it's almost like the way I look at it. In a way, the religious Jews are almost like the officer corps. Very important. You guys give the orders. You guys take care of the big picture strategies and things like that. However, that needs to be carried out. So I'm hoping, I would love to see, in the interest of both safety to Israel and world peace, that there's a bridge being built between the secular Jews in Israel and the religious Jews like you and like Dr. Trappler and all that place, so that it can be translated. But from what you're saying, it's already getting there. You guys are already communicating better. That way, that's
Sean,
why
I'll tell you that there's a lot of money to be made in conflict, and unfortunately, you know that Chabad is trying to build bridges. That's what we've been doing since the Rebbe ever told us to go out and do outreach work. Um, but there's unfortunately large, powerful, well-financed, uh, what we call, conglomerates of sorts that intentionally feed off of conflict. And for us, the Orthodox community, it's not just building the bridges, and we're doing a great job as far as We have Yedidim, which is basically like AAA, but for free, uh, doing chesed, doing kindness, helping people if they have a flat tire that locked out of their car. We have Zaka, which is basically an emergency volunteer, again, for free. Um, uh, Medical emergency systems. We have many organizations in Israel that service the entire population, Jewish, non-Jewish, religious, non-religious. If you're in Israel and you need help, you have someone helping you because we see it as a mitzvah, as it's something special to do in the eyes of Hashem. So as far as that goes, there's a lot of bridges being built. Um, but there's also a great effort to continue the conflict. And this is why a lot of the civilians in Israel today are extremely aggravated at this government right now because Bibi Netanyahu, before October 7th, was basically sending millions of dollars to the Hamas regularly, um, against the right wing's wishes and maybe even against the left wing's wishes. And unfortunately, a lot of people suspect that the way this government has been conducting itself almost is like they live off of the conflict. They don't really want it to end. That's why the right wing is really sticking it to Bibi Netanyahu and telling him, look, you better end this war and you better end it on our terms. You're not bringing in the Saudis. You're not bringing in any other Arab country into Gaza to babysit the Palestinians. We are going to put our military, our political leadership there. This is a safety and security issue that cannot be dealt with in some kind of phony way that can blow up in our faces later. We're done with the games. Terrorism is a very serious thing, and if we need to do the same thing in Yehuda and Shomron, Judea and Samaria, then we will. And if the Hezbollah think and if the Hezbollah don't totally surrender and get away from our border, then we'll deal with them as well. In other words, this whole passive aggressive attitude, in other words, just like Sinwar, which is the head of Hamas, has been funneling millions of dollars from Qatar and to keep this conflict going, so too Bibi Netanyahu seems to be funneling millions or trillions or billions, I don't know what, of money from the Americans. And it almost seems like they both got addicted to this little game that they both want to keep it going. That's what upsets the average Israeli citizens here in Israel. That it almost feels like every time we get to this point where we're going to cut the head of the snake off, there are some idiots from both sides of the conflict that keep it going. And this is the frustration that unfortunately cost us thousands of lives on October 7th. Um, and hopefully there will be more justice in Israel. Like we spoke about the three pillars, and hopefully justice, truth, and only then peace. If you don't have justice and you don't have truth, then your peace is not going to survive very long. And this is what we're seeing in Israel. Bibi Netanyahu was putting all his chips on peace, but not paying very much attention to the truth or to the justice. And that's kind of what I think blew up in our face. We're going to have to really work on that justice and on that truth. And the justice is that if terrorists come to kill you, you got to kill them, and you can't um, give them any discounts of, oh, maybe we'll educate them, re-educate them. You know, that's like saying, when are snakes going to grow, I don't know, furry, fluffy coats and turn into a totally different animal? You have to understand what you're dealing with, and you have to deal with it at the time in the way it is. We're talking about children that are been educated from birth that the best thing in the world is to kill a Jew, and that every time they kill a Jew, um, it brings them closer to their redemption. We're talking about an indoctrination. We're talking about a very, very deep thing. You can't just play with this. You have to understand what you're dealing with and deal with it accordingly. Of course, long-term plans, changing education, that's later. But right now, the terrorism needs to end, and these people that are sworn to destroy Israel need to cease to exist, especially the ones who are acting on that education. So hopefully we'll have this pillar of justice and this realism, this truth, and that will bring us to an everlasting peace. Shawn, closing
Would
statements, please.
would the would the people of Israel welcome a possible intervention by the Americans
Of
or El?
course, of course, of course. But it has to be, we have to be realistic. Gaza was given to the Arabs, was given to those Palestinians to start a semi um, two-state solution kind of idea. Unfortunately, right now, the reality is that Gaza was a complete failure. It became a terror hub. The Hamas actually disrespected their own people. They put their own agendas before their own people. The Palestinians in Gaza hate the Hamas. There's 2 million there's about 2 million Arabs that live in the state of Israel, and they're actually very, very happy. A lot of them are actually signed up in the IDF. So honestly, when I talk to Arabs, including our friend Jay from Hebron, he's actually telling me, listen, Yossi, the honest truth is that every Arab within the entire Middle East, forget about Israel, Lebanon, Syria, Jordan, Yemen, they all wish that Israel would run their countries, because any country that's run by Arabs is what Trump would call a shithole. Uh, there, there's they're not having a good time. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that Israel is supposed to take over the entire Middle East, but I'm telling you that right now, the Arabs that live in Israel are living the best life that any Arab could live in this entire area, and they are that are living under the Israeli law. And at least that should be applied to Gaza and Yehuda and Shomron, which historically, biblically, and also according to the Quran, belong to the children of Israel. The only way the land of Israel can be acquired is through inheritance. Okay. And that's why it was so important for me to talk about Yishmael and how he is not the one who inherits this land. He has other lands, but not this land. Um, and the inheritance is the children of Israel. And that also means that even if we had some politician who gave away land back in the day, he does not represent Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He does not represent the Torah. It's not his land to give away. So I just want to make that, at least from a Torah justice perspective, the land of Israel belongs to the children of Israel. And I actually think it's a good thing. And actually, the fact that we have millions of Arabs that live here happily, serve the IDF, understand that we're not doing something irrational. Okay, if the local Arab population felt that Israel was acting not justly, they wouldn't sign up to be part of the IDF. They wouldn't support the war effort against Hamas. In other words, we are monitored, and we have people looking at us just like yourself, which you're not Jewish either, but you're looking at us as an ultra-Orthodox Noahide from the side, from the nations, and you're saying, okay, I'm looking at the Jewish people. I'll tell you right now, they look like they're okay. They're balanced in the way they approach things, and so far so good. So, and I appreciate that. And because the Jewish people, for them, it's so important that they're on the right side morally and ethically. It is, it's welcomed with open arms that other people should challenge us and give us their point of view. So with that, thank you so much, Shawn, and it's been really cool. You want to say one last thing before we lock this up?
Well, I mean, let me know. Let me know how I can help. I mean, if I can help, that's all.
All right, thank you, Shawn. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure. You came and visited here before the war. We had a good time. We've been working together on many projects, and I really respect and appreciate you. Your last visit here really solidified a lot of things for me as far as the justice and law enforcement and how to look at things with a with the correct justice angle. And I do appreciate that. I know it was a challenge to get it across to me, but I think I got it a little bit.
I
Um,
mean, like I
mhm.
said, man, the like I said, I mean it when I say that you guys are like the officers. Like people go to schools, go to West Point, ROTC to become officers, After they become officers, they have a lot of knowledge, have a lot of potential, but then there's also training in how to adapt that to the situation at hand. So you're going through the same things that a lot of people, such as officers, are going towards before in the military. You're learning how to adapt your wisdom to something that's tangible. You're bringing your knowledge all the way from Atzilut all the way down to the Malchut or the Asiya, wherever. And it's a normal thing. It's an ongoing thing. That's part of the thing. Eventually, the more you adapt, eventually you'll be able to make decisions. Maybe one day, maybe I don't know, maybe you can actually make a lot of difference. I mean, even more than now. I'm sure you're
Bezrat
already
Hashem,
making
look, Shawn,
differences.
we've been to the Knesset. We proposed the Sanhedrin initiative at the Knesset. I'm sure you're aware of that. We've been making our conferences throughout Israel, and we hope to continue to do that. And of course, whoever is interested in supporting us should check out our website, MN Global, like Mashiach News, MN Global, Mashiach News Global.org. Check out what we're doing. You have the Sanhedrin initiative of all the rabbis that we visit. We document everything. We try to keep everything documented so that everyone sees what we're doing. And you can check out the judges, the advisors of the Sanhedrin initiative, and all the good work that we're doing. And of course, anyone in the world who actually wants to see Torah justice, true justice, as it is in the Bible, and it has graduated running away from the creator of heaven and earth and wants to give the Torah a shot, to try to manifest it in this world, but of course do it in the right way, then definitely welcome and join us. Sign up, and thank you so much, Shawn, for your time. I know this was a long video, but I think it was called for. It was quality, and I think it compacted a lot of topics we haven't spoken in a while in the public domain. So I think this was a good comeback, you know, a good comeback to the public domain. So thank you so much, Shawn, and we'll be in touch with you in the future. Yechia Melech.
Shalom. Thank you.